All right, we're live. Welcome, everybody. We have another guest, or a guest who is joining us again. One of our favorites, both from our audience and for me personally. I'm a huge fan of Howdie Mickoski. We really do appreciate him coming on. For those of you who don't know, Howdy is a renowned author, former Canadian philosopher, researcher in areas of simulation theory, history, self observation, ancient wisdom, you name it, he's on it, basically. If you haven't, I'd recommend checking out our first episode. That was a huge hit on the Spellbreakers podcast. We're hoping to dive a lot deeper into the Reincarnation Trap and talk solutions. Before we begin, I want to announce a bit of exciting news, a new sponsor. Guys that I've used personally and mentioned several times in the past. It's called the Mace Energy Method, and they're a method of, I guess you could call it therapy, trauma healing, energy unblockage that I've used personally that's yielded really phenomenal results. Oh, sorry, Howdy, I'm getting a little feedback there on your end.
Oh, all good.
Hope so. Okay. Yeah, I hope so. Anyways, I'm flashing it on here. Eric is the practitioner I use. He's a really great guy. The great benefits of the Mace Energy Method is you're not actually disclosing, what you're dealing with, what traumas you're going through, so you don't have to get hyper personal. But it's quite a rapid experience. I did 1 2 hour session, and honestly, I've never been the same since in a really positive way in terms of letting go of blockages. So I have the contact of Eric on the screen here. It's Eric Mace, Mace, at macelifecatalyst.com. I recommend you guys go check him out, reach out to him, see if it's for you, and I know he does offer money back guarantees. If you do a session and it doesn't work for you, he won't bill you. So it's a win-win-win, I think, for everybody. Full disclosure, I am getting some money back from them if you do sign up, but it's something that's really helped me, and I hope it really helps you. So, without further ado, we have the legendary Howdy Mickoski. Howdy, how you doing?
I guess similar to you, it's a lot of work right now on the farm, getting a lot because we're planting a lot more than we did last year, given the world's climate. So we want to get a bit more planted. So and we haven't had rain but which is for this part of Norway is bizarre. We haven't had rain for like 10 days. So I'm out every night like watering. So it's been a lot of work, but it's okay. There's lots of other things I could be doing, and being outside and getting grounded in the earth is always useful. How you doing?
Yeah, man, same. It's huh. It feels like a quickening is happening. Not just in the world script, but also my own life. Yeah, mostly for good. As I was mentioning offline, we're expecting. We just found out yesterday it's going to be a little girl, so I'm really excited for that. And getting married this year, and man, this year has actually just been overall really good. And I'm finding more and more the less I just focus on anything external outside of my sphere of influence, the world, stupid media, Trump, all of that crap. I just feel better and better every single day. And yeah, in terms of this concept of manifestation, I know you talk about it a bit. It really does seem like consciousness dependent because I'm just seeing more and more things are just falling into to line very very easily and effortlessly when I'm kind of totally tuned out from a lot of the insanity within the world. And then as soon as I start to go back and dip my toe in or read a politics article, I start to spiral again. So maybe there is something to just totally getting off grid, like I guess we both have done, and just really embracing it. Yeah, what about for you? Do you just totally tune out of the entire theater? Like, do you follow world events at all, or?
Yeah, well, I'm following it to the extent that I'm watching the breakdown of the simulation. So as the simulation is in its break point, I'm kind of I'm just paying attention to how it's breaking down. more for my own curiosity. Yeah, I don't get too sucked into it because I kind of know the end result. So I have it's not like I'm going to be surprised what the end result will be. I'm just curious how it gets from here to there. And is there like anything is it's like if there's going to be a hurricane next week, it's nice if somebody knocked on your door and told you like, hey, next Tuesday, hurricane coming. You might want to, get ready for that. So it's just kind of the same thing with the world situation. It's just enough to know what's affecting the thing in the screen, the thing I see in the mirror every day. What might be affecting that coming up? Other than that, yeah, I just kind of just let all the rest of it do its thing. And I mean, I don't really watch any videos. I don't watch any podcasts. I even almost read no books anymore. Mostly because I'm not really finding much that I'm saying this is really intriguing to me. It's very rare that I come across something and I say, okay, this looks really good. I really want to put an hour into this. Otherwise, I got lots of other things I can do. I mean, I live now in one of the world's um, main tourist destinations. There's a cruise ship that goes past my window every day. It's a new cruise ship every day.
Okay.
So people are spending a lot of money to come to where I've just moved to, and so I just like to sometimes just do what I'm doing right now, just sit outside and look at the view. And so I'm just kind of enjoying that.
That's awesome. Yeah, hopefully they're not killing your vibe too much. I moved here about just under 3 years ago, and now it's becoming cool to be off grid and in the middle of
Does the
nowhere.
view come through?
Oh yeah, wow, that's gorgeous.
Yeah,
That's so nice.
so that's where I live. Yeah,
Nice,
that's where I live now. So
nice.
not because it's great or special. It was just, well, if you live in Norway, you should live in a fjord. So
Yeah,
okay, let's do it. It's got its challenges, but it looks nice every day.
yeah, yeah. You have to fjord. There's no option. Yeah, it's becoming almost trendy too. Like here in Alberta, I see more and more people lurking around where live, and some of my spots. Not every day, but the odd time I'll see like a couple there who have found one of my dozens of secret hangout spots. So I'm hoping it doesn't become too
Mm.
trendy to live like we're living, and everyone flees, the cities. But yeah, I mean, what do you make of that? Do you think that is people starting to at least unwrap a couple layers of the insanity of the simulation, like the drive to move into the country? Do you think that's a good sign or?
Well, no, not necessarily. It's more and more people are being impacted by things going on. It's things are personal. While it's just craziness around them that doesn't affect them personally, the average person doesn't give a shit. Yeah, that's the way it is. It doesn't matter what's happening over there. It doesn't matter if, yeah, all these people are getting bombed and these people are starving and this, as long as I'm okay, then everything's fine. But more and more people, it's given particularly the economic climate and the costs of food, the costs of electricity, the cost of gasoline, the cost of everything, right? Cost of rent. People are starting to feel it, they've been feeling it personally. And given the last 4 years of it was a great opportunity for a lot of people who kind of were on the fence, who had kind of been wondering, there's something wrong with this place. Like there's something wrong here. I don't know what it is, but something's just not right. And all of these government officials and people we've been trusting and people on TV, there's something just wrong, but I don't know what it is. Now, in the last 4 years, they got this unbelievable brick to the side of the head, basically. And some people like had these spontaneous realizations of like, holy crap, this whole it's a piece of junk within this reality, right? It's like, wow, it's a complete piece of junk. And they've started to unravel more and more and more. So from that, some people got on the train, and once you're on that train, you can't get off. Like once you see that on one level, reality isn't what you think it is. Like they're not at where I got to, right? 20 years ago, they're not there, but they're at the point where they're saying, okay, yeah, all of this stuff that I trusted as being in my best interest, now I see it is probably not. Wow, what do I do now? who do I trust? And so I think what you're seeing is then that it becomes the sense of, well, I don't know who to trust. So it's better if I simplify my life. It's better if I, in this case, move to the country, just be somewhere where I'm a little bit, with just my family and kind of simplification. I think is the word that I would be seeing more and more of a lot of people who see through this stuff because they're not really sure what else they can do. So and it's a useful first step. It will give you a place to start thinking. But then there's the layers where the thinking can take you.
Yeah, and I've been rereading your first book, Exit the Cave. I'm very excited for part two. But what I really like in it is that you lay out the many trappings along the way, right? The truther movement kind of poses awakening as a light switch, a one and done. It's like that a certain experimental injection is bad, thus everything. You know that September 11th was a little suspect. You're totally aware, but I love how you outline in your works the many trappings along the route of awakening, and I believe the reincarnation soul trap, when you really dig into it, is kind of the final boss in a way. When you start to really realize that this is it is a real phenomenon, maybe not the conclusions we've come to, like maybe there's a different interpretation, but the general idea of that A, reincarnation is real, B, there seems to be a manipulation system going on to get us to reincarnate again and again and again in a type of Machiavellian format, as well as this being some type of farm loosh harvesting. I think everything else is just tertiary. It doesn't really matter, right? And so that's why I think your work is so important, that you're focusing on what I think is the core problem, is this concept that we're being tricked into reincarnating again and again. And so, I don't want to rehash everything from our last conversation, but I wonder if just like a foundation for this talk, if maybe we could start there with, why we know or believe the reincarnation trap is true. Where are we pulling from? What data? And, to what degree of confidence do we think it's happening?
Sure. So actually, there's two sides of the problem. What I now consider awakening, there's two complete sides of it. One is what you would call seeing that a true part of yourself is trapped in a prison-like universe. That's one side of it. The other side of it is seeing that there is no universe and there's nothing to be trapped. So there's two absolutely seemingly opposite parts, and generally somebody falls on one side or the other. They become very good at seeing through one side of it. They have very difficult time acknowledging that the complete opposite of what they're just seeing is also true, bizarrely. But we can start with reincarnation. So now, when I use the term reincarnation, I probably didn't say it really well in the first book, but to me, reincarnation doesn't necessarily need to mean living a new life over and over. Like you die and then you get reincarnated in 20 years and now you're this person living in Africa. Now you're going to be this person next living. I mean, reincarnation could also be equivalent of a time loop where every time you die, you just go back and are born again as you, and you live another life and another life, and you live like 10 million lives of you. So the proof for that, for that side of it, which I actually hold, is if I had to pick which one is more true, reincarnating into multiple lives or reincarnating into your own life over and over again, I actually picked the second one as the more likely scenario. Partially because it's easier once you begin to see that the world is a simulation, that the world is in a sense an AI computer simulation. That's actually easier for a computer to do. A computer likes to do simple processes over and over again. That's really easy, and that's how you'd want to program. If I was going to program experiences, it's a massive amount of coding I'd have to put in. If I was going to put you in 10,000 different lives, that's a lot of coding. But if I give you just 10,000 of the same life, with just we're going to have it so that a few things just slightly go off kilter in each one, so they're slightly different. That's less coding. Um, so for me, this my first real death experience personally happened in 1999, and I just finished a bachelor auction actually, and it was for breast cancer research, I think. So you can't say no to something like
Yeah.
that. Anyway, the day before, the date that it happened was just awful. The woman was a drunk. I can't describe it in any other shape or form. She was like hammered by the time the date started. All she talked about was how much she drank, how many times she's fallen downstairs. I mean, it was really sad. The next day, I was walking on the street in Calgary, and I was replaying the night conversation before, like we do sometimes when we have like weird experiences. And in the course of the night, she had asked me, because I was now 1 year into my work. I just started studying with a Korean monk. And she asked me, why did you start all this spiritual bullshit anyway? And I didn't answer anything. I just kind of joked at the time. I made some funny answer. But on the street, I had the realization of my answer should have been, well, because if I didn't, I would be dead now. And as soon as I said that, the everything on the street just dissolved. Like the street in downtown Calgary dissolved, and I was on a highway, and there was a tractor trailer that had smashed into a car. The car was really crunched. There was a guy walking around who'd obviously been the driver of the truck. He was like in shock, just walking around. I looked into the window of the car. There was a woman with brunette hair, and she was alive, but she was pretty banged up. I noticed there was a second car flipped over in the ditch, and I can't say I walked over because it was more like a floating. I kind of just floated over to the car. I looked in to see how the driver there was, and the driver was dead. And I realized that the driver was me.
Whoa.
And I realized that at that exact second, in you can call it a parallel universe or a looping reality, at that exact time and day and play, and not place, obviously, this happened in a different location than Calgary, but I died. And from that experience, I started to track some of the stuff. Like I tracked that life. I was able through some of the work I did with some medicine men to be able to start tracking. So I tracked where the life I was living currently, this life, how the life I saw where I died, where was the movement point? Where was the point where the two lives kind of would split? And I found that movement point and I tracked that life. And I tracked several other lives that I had. And what was interesting, and then I'll shut up and let you ask the questions. It was what was so interesting for me was that all of the lives I looked at were not crazy. Like I wasn't wound up being, some president of Pakistan, or I didn't wind up, seal fishing in Finland. I mean, all the things that occurred in my life in these other realities were plausible. And if I just did this instead of this, if I talked to this woman instead of that woman, if I went here instead of that, exactly could have been my life. They made total sense. And once I realized that actually that makes quite a bit of sense, that if we'll call it, some of they like to say that a creator made this place because he wants experiences. The creator wants to experience a material reality. Well, that's a real dumb thing if you just then make one person and have you live one life and that's all the experiences you get. It would make more sense to just make a million of the same person. Then you have every experience possible from that person. And I think that's what's going on. So my sense is that when I say a reincarnation trap, it's hard to say what kind of reincarnation it is, but the point being, something wants, we'll call it our individual awareness, constantly coming back to a material body over and over and over again, and not in any way for our best interest. Because like we talked about in the book, right, you wouldn't get memory wiped. You would remember all of this stuff. It wouldn't be hidden from you. So if all of this is hidden from you, it's not for your interest that it's hidden from you. It's for whatever's doing it. And so to me, the combination of these experiences, and of course how many young children have reincarnation memories, it just seems so obvious that this is happening. We're not being told about it. We're not being given any real understanding about it. And so it became clear that it's not for our interest.
Wow, that I can't imagine having that experience. I've had a few instances in my life where I see the matrix starting to break down a little, like it's an inkling, like when things happen so beyond chance repeatedly, but I've never seen the full breakdown of the reality, and that must have been pretty intense. And so, yeah, I mean, what I do appreciate about your work is that you're not saying anything with certainty, and I think that's the mindset we need to take to this type of information, right? Exactly as you said, there's thousands of NDEs, and examples of past lives, in between lives, and the vast bulk of them are positive, right? People go into the light, and then they see their deity of choice, and they console them, and they're like, you're gonna come with me any minute, but oh, there's just one more thing you got to do. You left, you left the seat up. You left. There's one NDE. It was like a 4-year-old kid. They're like, you left the bread open, and that made your mom mad, so you got to go back. You know what I mean? Like, it is clear we are being manipulated, whether it's, as you said, just running the same life again and again and again and again and again, which is becoming more common in Black Mirror and other literature, them telling us a lot of these things. But as well, this reincarnation trap. So who knows what's really going on?
But even our life, even the life we're living, is being manipulated. So it's not just we're not just being manipulated before we're born or after we're dead. These beings are actually manipulating our lives, very similar to what was happening in the Adjustment Bureau, right? That kind of stuff. I mean, now the more I've done my life recapitulation, the more I'm able to actually see when some demonic being was actually manipulating my life. They threw it in as coincidence. They made it look like this is, oh, wow, look at this great coincidence. You should, the heart of the New Age movement, follow your coincidences. And I've now come to realize most coincidences are setups by demonic beings to move you on a life path that they want, not something you might want. So the level of manipulation and deception and distortion, that's the big one. Distortion. That's a word everybody should take. It's not that all these beings and these systems and religions and philosophies, they're not lying to you. They're distorting the truth. They take a little bit of truth and turn it a massive direction like this. And so people can feel there's something in it. It's like, yeah, there's something there, but because of the distortion, it's gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a better way to do it, right? And to look at it. It's not. I think almost everybody's doing the best that they can. I'm very skeptical in general of the New Age and the institutional backing that it got. With Blavatsky and the UN and all of this. It's clear they were trying to create a new world religion, but I think most of the practitioners and people caught up in it are very well-meaning people. And yeah, I see that on all sides, right? And that's kind of built into the matrix, if you will, that for every layer you unravel, there's a new pitfall to keep you there, right? Yeah, I'd be curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at traps, right? There's traps set up, but if you miss the trap, it's not necessarily over for you because they've just set up a different trap for you over here. That you miss one trap here, but they put this one over there, and it's very hard to learn to navigate through all of them. And everyone's going to walk into some of them at some point in time, just because we were lied to from the moment we were born. Like our parents were lying to us. They didn't know they were lying to us. They were doing the best they could and trying to tell us this is how the world is, this is how you succeed, this is how you need to be, this is whatever, this is why the sky is blue, this is whatever they want to tell you. But we begin to see that actually all of that is untested beliefs. That's really all it was. It's a bunch of untested beliefs that their parents told them, and they moved it along the line. Because you're going to be a new parent soon. I don't know if I mentioned this in my last talk with you, but this is something to keep in mind. And I was watching, there was a friends of mine who I think she was about 2 years old. So she was just starting to speak. And I noticed that when she wanted something, she would say, Sally wants a drink. She never would say, I want a drink, right? Sally wants a drink. Sally wants to go outside. So the Sally thing and that which was communicating are two different things to her. They are two completely different things. And of course, the parents are, no, 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 you're Sally. You say, I want a drink. I'm Sally. Sally wants a drink. So at this very young age, the child was, in a sense, realizing that the thing, the material thing, is not them, that they are, in a sense, like driving a car, and they are, the real them is not the car. And I mean, this was all of us, I'm sure. At some point in time, the parents will break down the child, and then the child will say, I want a drink. And as soon as we all did that for the first time, the Matrix has us. The
Yeah.
Matrix fully has us. When we've come to agree that I am the physical body, the mind, the thoughts, the feelings, the hopes, the fears, the dreams, and it took me, in my case, I mean, I've been lucky, even though my life was really, really hard and very traumatic and very difficult and very painful at many times, and close to death many times. I got to the point where, thankfully, from the teachers that I had the chance to meet and followed what they told me to do, found out that, oh yeah, this place isn't real, right? It's not a real reality. And oh yeah, I'm not real either. I'm just an actor on a stage, right? I'm a character in a theater production, right? Once you come to that realize, like, that's the other side of this realization of, we're talking about traps. So that's a trap right there. The trap of thinking that, a lot of people will say, oh, it's a simulated reality, and then and you'll hear them, well, do you care about this? Well, yeah, of course I do. But you just said it's a simulation. You just said you were living in a simulation. Yeah. And how can you care about things in a simulation? I mean, you pretend to care about them because you're a human being, and I have tremendous empathy now, and I have actually unbelievable empathy because of the reincarnation trap that I understand, and the challenges of beings, the trauma people that everything goes through. You know, people like to think animals have these wonderful lives. Well, go watch a deer or something in the forest and see what kind of life they've really got. It's a hard, harsh, difficult, anxiety-filled life. It's not fun. And if a deer ever injures its ankle, like if you injure your ankle, yeah, you can go to the hospital. If a deer injures its ankle, it's dead. Like, I mean, literally, something's going to come and eat it in about 20 minutes. So it's a harsh place. But and for all the empathy I have now for animals, for plants, for trees, for people, I also, because of the experiences, know, but it's simulation. And so there's a length to how far the world can pull me in. So something we were talking about earlier. It's not that I say, oh, I'm not going to watch the news, or I don't care what they say about Donald Trump or what's happening. It's more like, I know it's not actually going on. It's simulation. So it's curiosity from the standpoint of an actor in a simulation of what's going on in the simulation. All of this is a huge part of the buildup of dealing with a very bizarre reality. And again, don't take this for granted. Don't believe what I'm saying, right? It's kind of crazy talk. It's just 25 years of experience and, like I say, luck with having some really great people to spend time with me. And this is how I've come to see reality. And while I'm comfortable, I'm not 100% correct on anything. Never would think I am, but I know I'm probably more than 50%. I'm somewhere in that ballpark. And conversations like this for people are just to get you to think about things, get you to question some things, get you once in a while to just sit down and say, okay, what do I know for sure? That's a good question to ask yourself. What do you know for sure? Like, for sure. And if you're honest, you'll find not that much.
Yeah, it's so true, man. What I really appreciate about your first exit the cave is you call out a lot of these things about like geomancy or what is it the like astrology and these mathematics that they apply to dates and times that a lot of people get trapped into that, right? But you're really making an argument like that's just one of many examples of the fact that we are in a simulation, right? Like, do you see
Right.
this kind of looping quality like throughout the simulation? Yeah, walk us through
Sure.
that.
One of the best ways I've been told to know that you're in a simulation is if you don't have a real good understanding of the past. If the past is murky and has a lot of question marks and holes in it, because if you're building a simulation, if you're a coder, you're going to put most of your time into coding the start of the simulation and the future going ahead. You're going to put very little time into the past because that's kind of a waste. The simulation is, it's a simulation, it's testing something, and you want to test what happens going forward. You don't need to know what happened before the simulation started. So if you don't know much about history, really, that's a high likelihood that you're living in a simulation. And that's a perfect, once you study history and once you start to realize that, wow, we don't know anything. Like literally every story we've been told about history is on some level wrong, like absolutely, completely wrong. Um, wow, we are realize that we're kind of lost. Now it's important. Like you have to study Plato's cave. You have to study the matrix. You can't think you can just jump your way out of the matrix and not study it. You have to study it. Like you have to, what doesn't matter whether it's you look into science, you got to look into geology, you got to look into politics, you got to look into the medical system, you got to look into history, you got to look into philosophy. It doesn't matter. You got to look into all this stuff. The problem becomes is people just never stop. They start studying something and they realize, holy crap, the whole it's all bullshit. But they keep doing it. They keep studying it. And it's like, well, you've just found out it's actually bullshit. So time to move on to something else. And that's where a lot of people get really they get stuck. They get stuck um, totally examining the cave and forgetting like at some point the whole point of this project is to eventually see that, yeah, the cave isn't where you want to be. There's an exit to the cave. Eventually it becomes time, let's find the exit. Like, I don't need to know. You need to know when you're in a prison camp, you don't need to know everything about the prison camp. You just need to know A, the possible areas of escape, the possible doors, the possible ways to get out, and any possible things of how the prison camp runs so that you could figure out how to use that information. Beyond that, it's not really important how many boards there are in your barracks, like how many pieces of wood went into, but that's, I see this again and again and again where it's like the matrix will either use fear, right? It'll use temptation and it'll use distraction. It doesn't matter what you're interested in. If you just keep the interest out there externally on the matrix and not yourself, great. Doesn't matter what it is because it knows if the focus is here and not here,
Yeah.
it knows it's got you.
Yeah, and what you just said there is so profound, and actually, it's the conclusion of what I've come to from now. I think 60 or 70 hours of reincarnation studies and near-death experience studies. Is that the whole trap is to get us to, whether it's in the dream life, the astral, between lives, in this life, is to look to something outside of ourselves. And as soon as we do that in almost any way, they got us, right? As soon as we look for, a brighter day tomorrow, we look for that external stimulation to make us happy, that, ascended masters, or, Ashtar command, or, the Donald, or, or the white light beings that, Council of 12, all of these people, I think, is the exact same phenomenon as just the trick is to get us to look outside of ourselves to something to save us, to give us our authority, and then they have us. Your thoughts, Howdy?
Again, it's that's more on a totality level of what it's like seemingly after we die. It's a very challenging point, as I talked about, to know for sure what's going to happen after we die, because the near death experience, what comes back to us, and the thing you've been reading a lot of, and I know you probably go to Mark's Forever Conscious channel and read a lot of and watch a lot of his really good stuff that he puts on there.
Yeah.
Forever Conscious Research, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know
Yeah,
the
check him
channel.
out. Check him out.
Um, yeah. Um, who and really he came from Wayne Bush. Wayne Bush was kind of the one of the originators of putting together just this tremendous website, trickedbythelight.com. Um, I always like to also remind people that there's lots more than just me out there who has some useful information on this. But um, the challenge with the near death experience is that, like I say, it's a near death experience.
Right.
And the person is returning back to a body on earth. And if death actually is not a really fun thing, and you're going to send somebody back into reality and you're running a scam, the best thing you can do is make them give them an experience that makes them think dying is great. So I've compared the near death experience to going to into a dentist waiting going to the dentist but only going to the waiting room. So all you do is you sit in the waiting room, you read some magazines, there's a really good looking receptionist, you talk to her for a while and then say, "Oh, you can go home now." So you tell everybody, "Go to the dentist is fantastic. It's the greatest experience in the world. It's tons of fun. Hardly wait to do it again." But every once in a while, there's one person that actually goes to see the dentist. And when they start telling you what it's like, you're like, "What? He's putting a drill in your mouth? What? He's firing these things? No, no, you got to be crazy. There's just magazines. You said, see, you're nuts." And that's what tends to happen is that these really deep, detailed, and quite horrific near death experiences literally get pushed under the table, not just by the near death, like the actual like scientific researchers who look into this stuff, but anyone who talks about it, anybody who presents it, because it's ruining the party of this fun, wonderful, joyous thing of love, spending time with Jesus and dead grandma and whatever else, which is that's what people want to hear. People want to feel comforted and safe. That's what's being presented to them. And if you're running a scam to not have anybody do anything to prepare for death, that's one of the greatest scams you can run. And so, again, these beings, I consider them just evil slime bags, but I have to tip my hat to them that they're pretty smart in a lot of cases. They literally can structure unbelievable things into the psychological makeup of the human being to get the average person to not even think about death. Oh yeah, my grandma's going to be there to look after me. Buddha's going to be there to look after me. It's all good. I don't have to think about it. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, it's really well said. And I love the analogy there. It's like, yeah, you're gonna have endless root canals and drilling, but in the rating room, yeah, they bring you a little coffee, play nice music, so everybody's like, oh yeah, the dentist is amazing. But I think that's a great
if you
segue.
if you
Oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
if you read the ancient texts, or if you read the ancient texts, they give you clues as to what dying is really like, and it's not a lot of fun. And if anything, the memory wipe is not to forget your previous reincarnated lives. It's to forget what happened the last time you died.
Wow, wow, yeah, I think that's a good segue to questioning who the controllers really are, right? When I go through, and again, I do appreciate you mentioning Wayne Bush, trickbythelight.com, phenomenal resource, as well as Mark from Forever Conscious Research YouTube channel. Check them out; they're incredible. I'm trying to get both of them on as well, the podcast. Their work is just so undervalued, and needs to get out there. So, yeah, but I think the one thing that I think is up for debate is this simply an AI system? A lot of the Mark has actually outlined that a lot of the near death experiences seem to be almost like a recording, a loop that people experience the same thing again and again, right? And then at the same time, we do see these stories of people being manipulated by light beings, the Council of 12, convinced to come back. You need to learn compassion for another 10,000 lifetimes to really, really get it. So I'd be curious to see where are you at now in terms of like what are these controllers, and do you think they are just an AI system? Like they're just there to harvest our energy to keep the simulation self perpetuating? Are they actual kind of archons like the Gnostics? Like where are you coming in at?
That's all. It doesn't matter what name you use or how you describe them. It just different ancient texts use different terminology, and if you read Tibetan texts or you read Gnostic texts or you get a hold of whatever you can piece together from the Cathars or what the ancient Egyptians say or native Indian mythology, it's pretty much the same, just slightly different. That there's one creator, one, and then this creator made a whole bunch of beings to do the work for him, i.e., that's AI. He made in a sense a very sophisticated AI system to carry out to do the coding, to do the programming. That's what archons are. So archons, you can call them the coding mechanism of the reality, and at the same time the guardians slash gatekeepers of it as well. So it's all just, yeah, it's a, and again, there's a perfect example that we're running a type of computer simulation. It's not a computer simulation. I don't want anyone to think that it is. It's a metaphor. It's like a computer simulation, but it's much more much more complex. Um, but that's a perfect example. That the near death experiences, which should be unbelievably varied. I mean, you're now in the astral after death realm. It should be, and yeah, they are so similar, and they're so similar by culture as well. So a white person from Canada will all have similar experiences, but a black person from Ethiopia, their near-death experiences will be quite similar. An Indian person from India will all the experiences tend to also, if you look into those from other cultures, they're similar within the culture. So it's almost like the culture also gets a particular button that gets pushed when it's your near-death experience. It's, oh yeah, you're a Greek person from Greece, okay, and click, A7 kind of thing. That again indicates a type of coding system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the system is set up to, yes, it's to harvest energy, it's to harvest what Robert Monroe calls loosh, which is used to keep the entire power of the system and keep it running. But it's also mining data. It's mining, it's storing every single experience that goes on by every single creature on every level of every universe, of every reality that's going on in this place, and it's stockpiling it. And it's stockpiling, like any data collection. You can say, yeah, well, the government's doing that in mirroring it in this reality right now. They're tagging everything. They're not doing that for your best interest, right? The government is not storing everything you do. And this conversation, of course, this conversation is getting stored in some government database somewhere, right? They're not doing that for our interest. They're doing it for whatever they think they can use that for them. So why would a very obviously sick universe be doing anything else with the data? And that data, as we flip back earlier to what you had talked about with the near death experience and the child and the being the life review, you can say the life review you get in the afterlife is is dependent on the complete data source that these beings have access to, that they have access to every single second of your life, and they can just literally pull out this piece, this piece, this piece. Let's show you what a horrible person you were. It's partially why doing the life recapitulation while you're alive is so unbelievably important, because if there are holes, if there are gaps in your memory, and all of a sudden you get thrown a life review in your after death realm. I don't acknowledge that you should have one, but okay, let's say you can't avoid it. It happens to somebody, and you don't really have a true, complete understanding of your life, which I hate to say, until you've done a life recapitulation, you don't. Then, and they show you, yeah, this is what happened when you were 7 years old. This is what you said to your sister. You're going to agree with them. Must be. I just forgot that. I can't believe it. But only if you've seen your life in absolute excruciating detail are you at a point where then there's nothing that can come at you in that life review, because you've seen it all completely. You've acknowledged it all. You've acknowledged what's been positive, you've acknowledged what's been negative, you've literally canceled it all out energetically. So it doesn't matter what they show you. it's just, yeah, so what? Story, big deal. Happened to some actor on a stage, like if somebody if somebody showed something from Bruce Willis's Die Hard and said, "Hey, in Die Hard, you killed a whole bunch of people. You're a pretty bad guy." I was an actor. It's a
Yeah.
movie. Like nobody actually got killed there. That was like a TV show. That was a movie. Um, that's the kind of understanding that one has to have when they go into the after death realms. But unfortunately, the person dies and the person is fully invested in the character they've just played in life and become very confused, of course. And it's in this confusion, this after death, they just die. Now you're confused. Nobody is prepared for it. Very few people are preparing for the crossover moment. So here you are, confused. You think you're the person you just were, but now you don't have a body anymore. And it's very, very hard to figure out what's going on. And then they blast you immediately with love. They blast you with this gigantic, and the average person has been in their life feeling alone, confused, not accepted, um, traumatized, in pain, searching to feel better. And all of a sudden, the first thing you get when you die is the greatest, like the whatever you've been looking for, 1,000 times stronger. No surprise that that just wins people over automatically. Very few are going to battle that because they've just been coming out of such pain and are in such confusion that they all of a sudden feel wonderful and safe, so they're going to trust whatever is presenting that to them. It takes a lot of awareness to be able to know what's going to be going on there and be able to just navigate around that garbage.
Yeah. Very well said. And this concept of recapitulation, I think, is fundamental to, let's call it, solutions or awakening. So, for those who don't know, what how he's alluding to essentially is that in the near death experience, if you look through a lot of these NDEs, uh, it's a very common theme that we have a life review. A being or a council of beings go through our life together with us, and we are in an altered state, exactly as how he said. We often, people think that this is God, Buddha, Mohammed, Jesus, who's walking us through this, or ascended masters, or our higher self, whatever, yada yada yada, love bombing us and showing us, here's your life. But look at these things you did bad. Like, you stole that 10-cent gum when you were a kid. You're mean to your mommy. I don't know, you kicked that dog too hard who you barked at you when you were 5. So unfortunately, we're going to put you down for, another 10,000 lifetimes of compassion, you know. And there's even stories that Mark and Wayne have outlined where these beings are like, okay, we're gonna need you to like break a leg or a bone in your next life to experience, what that's like. We were thinking paralyzation, and then the lady's like, I don't really want to be paralyzed my whole life. And then the being's like, well, you would grow so much more spiritually, but okay, we'll just like we'll break your leg. Like, it's actual mafia shit that we're dealing with here. It's sick, but the recapitulation is they're using your undissolved traumas against you, right? The fact that you might still be bought into that, your story of your life being true, that's how they manipulate you. So what Howdy's talking about with recapitulation is very profound. It's like you got to go through all your life, get all that dirt out, and one of it, guys, a way to do this is actually the Mace energy method. Perfect chance for a promo here, putting it on the screen. Eric Mace at macelifestylecatalyst.com. These guys will help you process. It's just one way to help you process and unidentify with those past things, right? But yeah, Howdy, walk us through recapitulation,
Oh,
how to
yeah,
do
that
that.
and
Yeah, go ahead.
it's not really all those things are not really recapitulation. That's dealing with the life you think you've had. Recapitulation is designed to review your entire life from right now back to the moment of birth, everything. And most of it will, of course, be very dull and quite meaningless and quite useless. There will be certain moments that have been trigger points, have been traumas, but the point of all of that is to realize we never actually, one, we never experienced life the way we think we did, that there was a lot of repetitive, robotic behavior, um, unawareness. Okay. Then we've got the realization you'll get if you do the recapitulation deeply enough. I can only speak from my own experience and having done it. It took me 4.5 years, by the way, to do it. Um,
Mm.
that at least when I was done, when I was finished, and I thought, okay, I've seen my whole life now. About 2 weeks later, it started. It's things started to show me that huge events from my life had been literally wiped out, had been literally penciled out of my experience.
Can you give an
And once
example?
all of that began to, I give one in my book, Falling for Truth.
Okay.
I tell a complete story of a woman on a train that happened. So you guys can go and read that book, and there's a whole chapter on recapitulation in there in quite detail of how to do it, how I did it, and then this point of that recapitulation is really happening. I mean, you have to kind of review your life in a very dull, boring manner. It's very, very difficult. And then one day you'll have an experience like I've talked about in Falling for Truth, where I'm not now me thinking about an experience, remembering experience. I'm in the experience. Like it's happening again.
Mm.
I'm actually there. I was in a computer store when it happened. Similar to what happened in the other story I told you, the computer store just dissolved away. It was gone, and I was back on a train, and I was 22 years old, and this experience was playing out in front of me. I was in the experience, but I was just everything I did or said then, I just did or said again. But there was like this secondary awareness that was now like that was me now paying attention to all this going, how did I forget this? Like this literally shaped the next 10 years of my life. It explained everything that happened in the 10 years after that. And yet it was gone. I literally dissolved it from my memory because it was too painful. It was like 5 seconds of time, 10 seconds of time. It was very, very short. It was a very tiny conversation for my life, but it shaped everything. So the life recapitulation is designed to pull up everything that has been locked away, you might say.
Mm.
And there's also good things that have been locked away for some reason. Some people, um, there's certain people that have grown up being told you're not supposed to be good, you're not supposed to be special, you're supposed to just be a loser, you're supposed to just kind of hide in the background, and so they had some very special moments that they had to also hide and put away of that. Actually, there's something great about me, and all of that can potentially come out in the recapitulation. The end result of it becomes that you realize that everything of the life you thought you had was just a story that your mind was telling you. Not that certain things didn't happen, not that certain traumas didn't happen, not that certain pains didn't happen, but it means that it was, we've been presenting it to ourselves a particular way that suits a particular story we've been telling ever since. And once you unravel all of it, you all of a sudden, in the moment right now, realize you get the chance to actually now choose how you want to be moment by moment going forward, that none of this stuff anymore unseen is controlling anything. None of this stuff subconsciously can be making choices on your behalf. It's literally now, it's like you've literally evened the whole of your life out so that it's just like there's no energetic charge to anything. And now you can just step forward into tomorrow and like, what do I want to do? Yeah, I'll just do that. It's a powerful, powerful tool, but it's a commitment.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah, thanks for distinguishing between what I was talking about, and I think both are very much interdependent. And
It's that stuff is valuable. I mean, if you've got traumas in your life and they're unresolved, you must resolve them. Like if you know you've got a problem, if you know there's something going on, you can't try to deny it and hope it will go away. And there are lots of good avenues out there of people and procedures that can help with that. It's important that you do it. Bizarrely, you can't let go of the ego if the ego is still broken and shattered. Li- Oddly, you have to, even though you'll find the ego doesn't actually exist, you have to heal a damaged ego before it would be willing to let go. And it's kind of a failsafe. As long as the ego is still broken, you can't move forward. You've got to fix it. And it's an important part of the journey is to stop running from all the things you've been running from your whole life. There was another great teacher. Wow. Well, I was okay, great. It was interesting. I can't remember the guy's name, but he called this the spiritual process waking down. Never called it waking up. He called it waking down because you have to sink into eventually everything you've been running with. That normally the spiritual search is designed to get me somewhere else. I need to get there. I need to experience that. I need to achieve this, as opposed to where am I right now and how did I get here? And actually, I'm probably not a real happy guy. And that's why I'm trying to get somewhere else. And real deep spiritual work is actually saying, stop all that. What's actually here? What actually is this thing? I'm going to sink into myself and find out what's really going on. And it is part of the recapitulation, but it's also part of just the work of realizing that these things have to be seen, dealt with, and no longer denied if you really want to move forward. And it's painful, it's challenging, but there are good programs and good people that can help you through that. It's not exiting the matrix, it's not ultimate spiritual work, but like I say, you can't get to that stuff if you're still mentally, broken.
yeah, it's a really good point. And what's interesting is at the beginning of the talk you talk about all these different religions. They're not intentionally trying to lie to you. Maybe some within the organizations are trying to manipulate you for your money, but they're telling the story as they see. And the concept of sin in Christianity, I think, is a trap in a way. This endless guilt, you're always falling short, you're never enough, I think can be a mind trap. But at the same time, what's interesting is if you go through the life review and near death experiences, we're being manipulated by our lusts, by our like people who are like addicted to nicotine, right? They'll be like, don't you want, like, do you want to say goodbye to cigarettes forever? Or food addicts, or don't you want to live those experiences? Or and it's the same with traumas. They're using whatever we have a hook into us against us to get us to come back and loose us again and again and again. So it does seem like they're not in a a Christian you're gonna go to evil kind of way, but in a your own spiritual benefit. It seems like unhooking from a lot of the vices of life will actually benefit you.
You could easily say that if you want to simplify the word sin, you could just say it's not being clear and aware and balanced in the moment. That if you simplify the whole process of what they're kind of telling you, it's just if you are grounded and clear and balanced and relatively healthy, then you're not sinning. You're aware because in that state you don't need to do very much. Like you don't actually if it's I use this example sometimes that remember when you would you just met some girl and you're sort of one of your first dates and you're on the couch with her and you're just making out and it's like everything in the world is perfect. Like it doesn't matter what else is. It's like literally the whole world is perfect, and you find that you yourself don't need to be anywhere else, do go anywhere, or more importantly, you don't need to be different. You don't need to change who you are. You're just, that particular moment is so enjoyable for you that you just, and that the point is, you're not trying to bring this into your life constantly. That's tantra, and that they have their own way of trying to suck people into that idea.
Yeah.
It's an example that when somebody is extremely balanced mentally, it's a similar experience to that, where it's just you feel very comfortable in whatever you're doing right now, and it doesn't need to be any different. It doesn't need to be better. It's just the way it is right now is fine. It's a very unique experience to live. I don't live like that 24 hours a day, um, but a lot of the hours a day, yes. I've got to the point where it is just this, and again, I recognize, we live in a shithole. We live in a horror fest. Like, this reality is literally, what did Mark call it in one of his episodes? He called it dumpster fire, right? That's a perfect example for what this reality is. A giant fucking tire fire. That's what it is. With a few little happy moments interspaced in there to kind of keep us to forget about it, so we'll go back and get steamrolled again by the universe. It's a shithole reality. But the more that begins to be seen and realize it's not your fault. Reality is not shit because of you. Reality is shit because of the creators who built it. The creators who built this place could have built a different reality. They could have built a reality where things don't have to eat other things just to survive. They could have designed that. They didn't. They could have designed a thing where the human body doesn't break down the way it does and easily gets as ill as it does, and doesn't have any egoic structure like it does, and finds ways to hurt other people that we really care about. They could have designed a completely different world, but they didn't. So yes, we have to sometimes take responsibility for choices that we make and things that we do and things that we say when we're aware and we have opportunities, but it's also a reminder, actually, it's the creators of this place that have the questions to answer, not us. They created this shit.
Man, I love it. Yeah, my fiance, she's Christian, and she's getting hip to the reincarnation trap, but still, I'm starting to bring up some of these topics like, hey, life doesn't have to be like this, and you could just not have these things happen, and it could be totally fine. And yeah, there's some of the Christians really struggle with that idea. It's like, hey, we also could have a world where they're like, yeah, it is humans mostly doing it to each other, manipulated to do unspeakable evil, but yeah, we could also have like not -50 Celsius winters. We could also have, not animals not have to eat each other, and endless suffering and pain. And then you either gotta be like, yeah, that's true, this is a dumpster fire, or like, hey, we just don't know the will of God. And I think it's maybe I'm kind of coming in a bit of both. Because maybe there is a higher order to it, but I think if you just look pretty objectively, it's pretty. It is.
Well, I think we do know the will of God. The will of God, the God meaning the thing that created this entire material matrix, likes suffering. Pure and simple. It likes suffering. It enjoys it, or it wouldn't have created it like it does. So now you move into these Gnostic kind of teachings, right? Where the Gnostics are very clear that there is good in the universe. It's just, or there is good in reality. It's just that good is not in this particular creation. That this creation was made by, they call it Yaldabaoth, or the Cathars call them Rex Mundi, or Plato call it the demiurge. I'm not a big fan of Plato anymore, by the way. My new book is going to just destroy Plato. Nice. But when you begin to make that distinction, that, okay, there can be something that is total, what you might call good, complete, but that has has no impact on the reality we're experiencing. It has zero influence on Plato's cave. It all starts to make sense. It starts to make sense when you begin to take apart a religious text say the religious text that you're talking about. Okay, we're going to look into Christian religious texts, the Old Testament and the New Testament, which are two bizarrely named books, which you have to dig into and under legal terminology to know what testaments and wills and all these things actually are from a legal perspective to know what you're dealing with. But then when you begin to recognize that when something is referring to a god, or it's actually gods usually, it's very rare that it's God singular in the original like Greek and Coptic text. It's usually gods. But even when it's just God used, it can be referring to many different things. And when you begin to realize it can be referring to Lucifer slash demiurge, or it could be referring sometimes to this thing that is outside the matrix. The Gnostics called it the original father, or the father mother combination of totality, or something like that. When you start to then, when you realize that the same text is talking about multiple things, it actually can start to be deciphered and can actually be, like you say, talk about, okay, there's unbelievable truth in these books, and then it's a massive distortion. And the problem is the massive distortion is what tends to get sold and what tend to get, promoted again and again and again. And the true stuff, it's there and it's kind of in the background and it's almost never brought up, but it's there if you look for it. It's like it's still there. And that's why these old religious texts, and I'm not just going to pick on that one. I mean, it's the same for, it doesn't matter whether it's Buddhist texts or texts from India or anything else. There's stuff there. You just have to do a lot of work again if you're going to use that text to be able to read it correctly. And bizarrely, you have to have certain realizations, actual personal, like not thought realizations. You have to literally have realizations about the nature of reality before you can go back and actually uncover a lot of what the book says. Before that, it's things that I don't know what they mean. What does this mean? What does this symbolism mean? But once you've had a certain experience, like once had something like me where you've seen like, oh fuck, reality isn't real. Now, oh, this is when they're saying this in this text. Oh, I know exactly what they mean. I know exactly what this is. Or yeah, there's some real powerful like little comments and things like the Gospel of Thomas, for example. In the Gospel of Thomas, there's a lot of like very clear little 2-sentence pieces of information that are just stunning, and they tend to just get overlooked. And there's lots of that in these religious texts. There's great stuff in it. It just tends to get overlooked.
Wow. It's so true. Like a lot of truth is true on multiple layers, and it will hit you kind of topically. And it's only when you get more and more knowledge that it hits you in a different way. Even your works, I've been finding that. Like when I first read your book and your works, and saw your interviews, I thought
Right.
I really liked what you had to say. I was generally skeptical, and it didn't fully click for me, even though I had an appreciation. And then, yeah, going through Wayne Bush and Mark's stuff, then reading your book again. Last night I stayed up all night and read it again. And I was like, this is like, it hits so much better the second time. Now that I see where you're coming from and you have that wider knowledge.
Well, I'll just give it. I was just talking about the Gospel of Thomas, for example. So here's a quote from the Gospel of Thomas of like, this is like incredible piece of wisdom of what's the Christ story is about. So it's 3 sentences. Jesus said, I stood in the midst of the world and revealed myself to them in the flesh. I found them all intoxicated. Not one of them was thirsty, and my soul grieved for the children of humanity, for they are blind in their hearts. When they have vomited their wine, they will return to themselves. It's brilliant.
Wow.
Like it's brilliant.
Wow.
And if somebody unpacks that, if you like to say, I'm going to take the next week and just unpack everything that's in those 3 sentences, you could literally have a realization of the nature of reality. It's that detailed of a little tiny, and when you go through these texts, I find them again and again and again. It's like, wow. And yeah, I could have read it 10 years ago and I kind of, well, that's interesting. And then I move on. But as we transmute, as we change our being, now something that was interesting 10 years ago is like, holy wow, that's one of the most profound pieces of writing I've ever seen. And so it's a reminder that like there's a couple of books that I read every 2 to 3 years. And every 2 to 3 years I read them, I get something new from them every time.
Yeah, it's incredible stuff. And you know, the first time I had you on, I had a lot of people trolling me saying, you know, Howdy's like a doomsdayer and yada yada yada. But what's so interesting about your work is it's the exact opposite. Like you're really compelling people to search within and do this work. You know, so screw you guys. You know, uh,
Well, I mean, in a sense, I am a doomsdayer because I'm telling them this simulation is going to end. Right? I'm telling people it's going to end. Is you don't have endless. The point is you don't have endless time. You don't have thousands of years and thousands of lifetimes to figure it all out. The simulation is ending soon, really soon. And in fact, I would guess in about 30 or 40 days, there's going to be a light that's, in a sense, gets flicked on. And this is going to be a whole nother ball game here. And what that means is you have to determine for yourself what's important. What's the most important things in your life? What's the most important place you want to put your energy and your time and your awareness to? And don't wait for tomorrow to do it. Do it right now. Because when you start to, the point I make is like, don't wait for 5 years from now. You may not get it right now. I mean, when I had my death experience in 2005, I was just hiking out in the Canadian Rockies. I was just out having a nice hike in the woods, right? Never thought I would slip in the canyon and die. So it can happen any time. And so the best thing to do is, at least in my words, and my suggestion is, you might die tomorrow. So why not make today the day that you want it to be? Not from the standpoint of, I'm going to fulfill all these wishes and I mean, literally, instead to say, what's the most important thing in my life? So people that come to me and listen to a lot of my stuff, it's, well, I want to exit the matrix, or I want to know truth, or I want to know who I am, or I want to figure out what this reality is. Like, okay, how did you use today to help answer that question? What did you do with the day that you have in order to put you one step closer? Because if you died tomorrow and then you had to look back and said, you know what, maybe I could have figured something out yesterday and now I'm dead and I can't. So that's the real point. You can say it's actually a call to action. It's not a doomsday thing at all. It's like a slap to say, hey, you have the opportunity to deepen something right now today. And it's again why I talk about why suicide is just not a good option. Not because I'd say it's bad or it's evil or God will hate you. It's just you're probably not ready to exit the matrix if that's what you're interested in, like right now. So if you die, yeah, you'll end your current suffering seemingly, but you're not going to get out of this place. And the reincarnation trap's going to get you, and you're going to be right back in another body, perhaps even your own body again. Not even like, oh, I'll get a different body. I'll be a Japanese guy. I'm going to be me again, having the same horseshit experiences, having this a lot of maybe even worse than you did the last time. So even as difficult as it is that makes you want to think about ending your life, use that pain as a driving force to go deeper and deeper within yourself to find out what is ultimately true for you, what is ultimately true and total, because that would be your final and true escape, not trying to end a life and hoping the pain will end. The pain will end when you have come to the total understanding of who and what you are.
hmm. Wow, very profound, Howdy. And yeah, it seems like the main method that we're being trapped with ultimately comes down to us either being obsessed or traumatized by the past or fearful or scared of the future. And practicing, exactly as you said, the power of now, you know, presence, I think is really critical. You know, if you had one day, how would you choose to live it, right? Instead of hoping that in the obscure future my life will be better, bring stillness, awareness. You know, what can you do now, today,
Right.
you know, to improve your life? Yeah, I want to be respectful of your time, Howdy. I know we don't have much
Yeah.
longer, so yeah. Any closing thoughts and remarks based off our talk today? Anything you want to leave the viewers with, listeners with?
Not specifically, no. I think we answered your questions pretty okay there. Um, I guess I'm finishing the new book. I'd hoped it would be done by now, but it's been a much slower, more difficult process to do because it's been just the realization of the wide range of people that will read this book, because this is a more doing book. The other book, Exit the Cave, was more of a overview, might say, of the problem, and now I'm sharing. I don't want to call them solutions because it's not really a solution. It's just ways to create the extrication of that of the experience here. And because I've known so many people of so many backgrounds and so many levels are going to read it, I'm having to be very careful with the language. And so I'm rewriting things again and again and again and again. And it's like I'm hopeful by the end of next month I'll be happy with it, and it'll be ready. Because I myself would like to do some other things. I'd like to go and spend some time in silence in the forest, but I kind of can't because I've kind of got to put together this project. It's an important project. I think it's going to be very valuable. It's going to be very, I think, I don't want to say it's going to be controversial per se, but it's going to test the reader a bit. It's going to test the reader to because there's a lot of if you Google search exit the matrix and you see what's suggested, I consider 99.99% of everything that gets suggested from that search to be of no real value, actually. And so, uh, therefore, what I'm presenting in this book is going to be, because of that, almost opposite to everything else that's being said out there. And so it's taking me time to write it in a way that I'll feel comfortable with, that I think I can look back in 10 years, assuming this thing is still running in 10 years, and say I'm okay with that, you know. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And just like you, just enjoying being in the land, having my hands in the soil, and just working with nature, and coming up with new solutions for garden problems.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm looking into electroculture. I'm seeing these guys that they put poles with copper wirings, and they're saying they're getting crazy yields. So I thought I would try that this year just for kicks. But
Yeah.
yeah, who knows, right? Anyways, yeah. Howdy, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Guys, please keep an eye out for his new book as well. Buy all of his old books or you'll be trapped forever in the Matrix. I want to thank you, Howdy, for your time.
No, and
What?
I would recommend, actually, so we didn't talk about this one much, and that's my book, Falling for Truth. And Falling for Truth is really the story of kind of how I got through the death experience, and what happened through that. And I think a lot of that I read the book on my YouTube channel. Like, I think actually I read most of it is there. Highly recommended, just from the standpoint of, if somebody's wondering, I'm not sure what I should be doing. I'd like to do some stuff, but I don't know what to do. Falling for Truth is going to give you some ideas of things you can try out in your day-to-day existence and see if that has any value for you. And like I say, I think a lot of it's free on my YouTube channel.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to check that out as well. Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Howdy. Guys,
Yeah.
just please support him. And again, our sponsor for today, Eric from Mace, Eric Mace at macelifecatalyst.com. Reach out to him, book a session. If you don't like what he's doing, if it's not for you, he'll refund you, or just don't do his sessions. It's helped me a lot in my life. Hopefully, it helps you. Um, yeah, I'm gonna say my goodbyes offline to Howdy, and then I'm gonna come back on for a little post interview. Okay. And we're back for a little post interview. Guys, um, let me know if you have any questions for me in the chat. I'm gonna stick around here for 5-10, just do a little post interview here. So yeah, get your questions in. Yeah, as I said here, guys, we have this sponsor. Please reach out to Eric if trauma is something that you're still working on clearing. If you have kind of energy or emotional blockages that you know are, keeping you back, that's something, I've been struggling with my whole life. I had a bit of a tough upbringing. And, even though we do the work to heal, a lot of times the blockages are still kind of there. Like we haven't fully resolved. And it causes a lot of issues for us in terms of, like, I was chronically tired. I was having health problems. I was, just angry a lot, and it's something that working with Eric really, really helped, right? So I'm really happy that we're able to do a sponsorship with these guys. And again, this is not some big corporate thing. This is his email here, ericmace at macelifestylecatalyst.com. I know him. I used him personally. He's a good dude. And I was really skeptical of the Mace method when I first tried it. And I talked to the guy, and he's like, man, if it doesn't work, I'll just give you your money, or don't even pay me till after. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try this, right? Sold. And for me, it really worked. I don't want to pitch it as the end all be all. Like, once you do it, birds will chirp from on high, but for me, it felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. And yeah, a lot of things that were just felt like this, kind of undercurrent of anxiety that like baseline just kind of wasn't there anymore. And I'm thinking of doing it again maybe, but yeah. So Eric Mace at macelifestylecatalyst.com. It's on the screen there. But yeah, guys, please let me know what you thought about today's chat. I think it was a nice second chat with Howdie. I really like Howdie. His books are phenomenal. I've been really appreciating what he's pointing out, and I got some hate about him being a doomsdayer and me platforming doomsdayers, but I find his message very empowering. And again, another shout out to Wayne Bush. I almost said Bruce Wayne. That's Batman. Wayne Bush. I think he launched a new podcast recently. He's got like a co-anchor there, as well as Mark from Forever Conscious Research. These guys have laid the foundations for a lot of this knowledge. It's just phenomenal stuff. I'm trying to get both of them on. If any of you guys know them or in touch with them, please ask them. Donnie is begging for you to come on. I want them on so badly. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's fine. But yeah, this is a tough concept for people to wrap their heads around. And yeah, Wayne Bush and Mark really lay the foundations for us to know that we are clearly being manipulated into coming back again and again and again. And ultimately, guys, I think the message in all of this is personal sovereignty, going within, and awareness and presence, right? So I think, as above, so below. In this life, we always have people who just assert control over us, like governments. And because the bulk of us basically just say, okay, we do a passive consent. They don't get us to sign on a piece of paper, I consent to tyranny. But with us doing nothing and then us consuming all their products and us constantly living their debauched lifestyles and not saying no, we're kind of saying yes. And that's how psychopaths work. If you can get a little foot in the door, then that, they run with it. And that's the way it works down here. And that's the way it seems to work in the spiritual and higher realms. There are these beings that pretend like they have total control over us, and they manipulate us through love bombing that, you just have one more life to live, one more thing to do, one more thing to solve, right? Just a little hook that keeps you going again and again, just like a good TV show, you know? And maybe some of us, that's what we want, you know? I don't think it is all bad here. You can carve out a nice little niche for yourself in this dumpster fire, as Mark calls it. You know, I think I'm proof of that. I moved from a life in a location I didn't like to a really beautiful one, and my life is pretty sweet. But you know, it really makes us think what is possible. You know, like if you were God and you were able to engineer a world or a realm, you know, what would you build? You know, would it be this? No, not really, you know. And again, some people say, oh, it's just to learn lessons. Well, they totally memory wipe us, and you know, how many lessons do we have to learn? And do you know, you think of all the suffering and evil that happens in the world. I personally just can't say that, you know, this is supposed to happen, you know, for our learning and benefit. I think there's many ways to learn without torturing people, you know. Who knows though? Again, we have to take the mindset of not knowing for certain what's going on. As soon as we have, you know, certainties, that's when I think we get into trouble. But ultimately, I think this is a test, you know, whether intentional or whether we may have to make it that way in our own minds, that we need to take our own sovereignty back, right? That nobody has control or power over you unless we give it to them. And we have to cultivate our own sovereignty. And so, you know when you have a dream, right? You have the most bizarre scenarios, you know, playing out, and you just take it as like, oh yeah, that seems fine, right? It's because of the lack of awareness, right? Like, so I'm getting back into lucid dreaming, and part of that is dream journal, so training yourself to remember your dreams, and as well, throughout the day doing reality checks, right? You know, am I dreaming? Yes, no. You jump, turn on a light switch, that kind of stuff, right? And what's funny is, like, if we're really honest with ourselves, like, just look at the world objectively, you know, and do a reality check of the world. To me, I'm like, this place is so absurd. You know, if you just look how clownish all, you know, just from the politics and then media, and, you know, to me, it's not obvious. It's pretty obvious that this isn't real. You know, if you do a reality check just on reality in the world, it's totally insane, right? And then the scientists, when they look into the nature of reality, you know, you look into matter, it's just like nothing. You know, it doesn't exist. Everywhere they're telling us that, you know, this is a you know, clown world, not real. You know, so the point being is that we go along with insanity when we're unconscious, right? We'll just kind of passively go through it, you know, like a passive observer. Whereas we are, you know, we are the core. We are, you know, the plot, right? Yeah, we are supposed to cultivate and take our sovereignty back, right? We're not just a passive observer, you know, in this process. And so I think cultivating more just consciousness and awareness throughout your day is one of the best things that we can do. You'll just naturally start dreaming more. People are less likely to just manipulate you, and you raise the vibes. So I'm just checking in here. I don't have any questions from anybody here, so I guess everybody, nobody has questions here. All right. Well, yeah, I'm going to wrap it up, guys. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And yeah, please support Howdie. I really like the guy. I think his work's phenomenal. As well, again, if you guys are looking to heal some blockages, reach out to Eric Mace at macelifecatalyst.com. Money back guarantee. I used him. I really like the guy. He's really great. Helped me a lot. Just let go of a lot of just like energetic baggage. And as well, what's really cool about it is I don't like talk therapy, and you know, I did it for years. And I don't want to discourage people. If it's working for you, do it. For me, it's just it just kind of almost re-traumatized me. Whereas this, in a very rapid period of time, like I'm talking 2 hours or less, you kind of let go of many things that can take years or forever with therapy. So yeah, if that's something you guys want, reach out to him. Yeah, I can't recommend him highly enough. And obviously disclosure. If you use him, he's gonna pay me a bit. Yeah, but it's a win-win. I'm never gonna pitch anything I don't want or use myself. As well, guys, I've started making privacy phones. Boom. I've started to make my own privacy phones, and they don't track you, and they're awesome. And 95% of the spying that is currently being done on you on your mobile device would be no more if you get one. I'm making them myself slowly over time. And prices, I have one right now for $350 US for a Galaxy A54, but I can do it with older models as well. But I need a deposit first. This is something I'm hoping to get off the ground to support the channel. So if you guys are interested in this, please reach out to me, thespellbreakerspodcast.com, and we can figure it out from there. Yeah. It's something, essentially, it's like, if you know Rob Braxman, I love that guy. He does it as well. I'm essentially making the same thing, but just over half the prices of him. Not to diminish his work. I think, go with him and support it, but I learned how to make these, and I thought it'd be a good thing to offer to, trying to monetize a little bit this podcast, but in a way that's actually based and not super lame. So I thought I could sell things. Also, my pomade, I'm going to start selling that as well, so you can have Spellbreaker hair. All right, guys, I'm going to check once more. Still no questions here, so I'm going to wrap it up. Okay, I love you all, guys, and I've been getting lots of great feedback from all of you. So I hope you're liking it. Hope you're breaking them spells. I hope you're going to have a great day today. As unlooshy as possible. All right.